Linked to the discussion we just had, our next speakers are Julian Fisher and Annouck Driesen from McKinsey. And what they have done is they have looked at different digital transformations out there. Some were very successful, some were less successful, some delivered great outcomes, some did not. And what they did is actually evaluate what are the characteristics of those transformations that made them successful. So I'm really looking forward to learn what you found and share with us what are the key characteristics of a successful digital transformation. Julian, welcome.
Thank you, Koen. Implementing a new advanced planning system is a little bit like having your first baby. Unless you've done it, you have no clue what's coming towards you. There's no recipe for it. It's going to take much more of your time than you ever imagined. And don't get me started on the sleepless nights. And with now a 2-year-old at home, I can tell you I personally haven't figured it out yet. If any of you have, let me know. I'm always happy to learn about best practices. And that's also what we want to share right now. Some of the learnings that we see from across the industry. Because most of you are at the verge right now to implement something new and start something new. And just like having a baby, there's never the perfect time for it either. Right? You might say, we're too busy. You might say, there's no budget for it. What many of you probably think as well is, it's such a volatile time. There's so much going on. This is a quick snippet from the German Economic Research Center, IFO. And of course, being German, it's a bit pessimistic. The glass is a bit half full, as we like to have it. But it's nevertheless true. It's been a difficult few years now. Coming out of COVID, it remained difficult, it remained volatile. And from a personal life, we know that. As supply chain professionals, we know that as well. But we argue that right now, the silver lining is it is the time to transform. It is the time to even further boost and strengthen our processes, our organizations, our technology. Let me give you one example from a person I admire a lot, Ayrton Senna. So everybody of you who is into Formula One and into racing might know that. Right? You cannot overtake a car in sunny weather, but you can overtake 15 when it's raining. And it's raining right now, and we see that in our daily lives. There is a lot of disruption. And this, of course, brings with it a lot of challenges, strains on our team, stress, but also a lot of opportunity. Because if we can get it right at the moment, we can really make a difference and turn supply chain into even more of a competitive advantage for us. And one of the big questions that we always get when it comes to implementing new planning systems and new processes and org behind, what's in it for us? What's the business case? And what we see through our research is that the average 10 billion company has a return that is significant. So you invest somewhere between 20 to 30 million for a 10 billion sized company, and you normally get, on average, a return of 2x out of that. But then, of course, we don't want to be the average. Because what we also see is that the top performers out there can actually make that 11x. And even though the title of this beautiful conference is, of course, 10x, our research, unfortunately, ended up at 11x, and we didn't round it down. So the gap that we see between the average and the top is big. And then, of course, the question is, what do we have to do to get it right? To go one level deeper on that impact analogy, we also took a look at all the business cases out there that we could lay our hands on for planning solutions and asked the question, so what's really the essence of the business case? And what we see is, not a big surprise, first runner-up, service level. Right? We want to improve the way we serve our customers, our patients, our partners in the chain. Of course, inventory, classical good old inventory, remains a topic, and there's many business cases that come from an inventory net working capital angle at it. There's labor productivity as well, of course. We heard many of the advancements as well that are further going to disrupt that. Right? Think of ChatGPT, the agent, the way that's going to shift and change the profile and the requirements we have to our planners. And of course, classical logistics cost, transport warehousing is part of the equation as well. It has to be. If we rethink the way that we work, we also want to affect that. What we see on the right here is now the spread of actual improvement opportunity. And you can see it's huge. And it depends, of course, very heavily on your starting point. Which sector are you in? Which industry? How are you performing? Right? And for some of the players out there, of course, having an increase of 30 percentage points is basically impossible. Right? If you start at 98, it's not going to happen. But there are other industries where that indeed is a topic. But it's important to think through where along those dimensions does your business case hold? Why are we doing that? And to not let go of it. Because at the end of the day, the business case defines a from to. We're going to change the way that we work. And each of these from tos has an implication on what is the functionality within an advanced planning system which is most important to you. What we've seen the demos before, is it the procurement side of the table that's going to enable that business case? Is it the control tower? Is it an IBP? Is it an ESG topic? It's very different. And with that, functionality for you that could be customized is very different. And also, the discussion around data becomes much more pointed. Because if you're clear on what you want to achieve, if you know what the functionality is that supports that, if you can prove the ways of working that are going to change, the discussion around data quality becomes very easy all of a sudden. Because you can tie data elements that are critical to a business case. Being McKinsey, we love data and analysis. So on this Thursday afternoon, we brought you now some insights from our latest research and surveys with 100+ players across the industry. And every year, for a few years now, we look at their process maturity, so before and after having implemented a new system. We look at the technical integration, the levels of automation behind. We look at the change management, and of course, underneath all of that, at the value. Because it often comes back to that to say, what's in it for us? And now Annouck is going to walk us through some of these insights and analyses to put a bit of meat on the bone of what is this really about.
Thank you. So we picked up 4 specific insights for you today. The first one being investments in process maturity does yield benefits. It's important to understand your current process, your pain points for adoption. And we see that companies that have a more mature process also yield higher impact and more sustained impact from their APS transformations. And do not fall into the trap of digitizing your current process, but really design for the future. Now, looking at some data. On the left-hand side of the slide, you can see a scatter plot linking adoption and process maturity to impact. So the bigger the bubble, the higher the impact on your transformation. And we can see clearly that a stronger process maturity and higher adoption has quite a significant impact on your returns. And we often get the question from clients, do we do process back or technology back? And we do believe that investing in your process, even prior to starting your APS transformation, does really yield benefits. Now, looking at the right-hand side of the slide, you can see something which might be a little bit less intuitive. So you can see different processes and how they correlate with your returns on your APS transformations. The top 3 processes are all supply. Demand comes later. So we do feel that supply planning process maturity is even more important than demand planning process maturity. It doesn't mean that you need to start with supply, but it does mean that investing in supply processes are even more important than your demand processes. Going to the second insight, speed is your friend. The way of implementing APS transformations is an agile mode. And we can see that the lengthier your implementation cycles, you really get a lower rate of return on your transformation, mainly because momentum is gone. And then what we advise clients to do is rather have shorter waves with incremental impact unlocks, which come a bit faster, and start with the one which is maybe a bit easier, maybe a little bit less return. However, it's less risky because having that first case gone wrong, your momentum is gone and you will not get the budget for your next wave. Now looking at data again, a 2x2 scatter plot. And here you can see time versus the first meaningful impact. So it's from the first day of your transformation to the first day of meaningful impact versus adoption. And you can see that the best-in-class implementers, they take less than 1.5 years to create that first meaningful impact. And something you might see also in your companies is it's more important to have these little snippets of impact where you can create some first excitement than where you need to wait for 2 years with a lot of painful hurdles, when then maybe impact might be a bit higher, but so to say, you can see that focusing on smaller chunks is really the way to go for your company. That's also the way I have done my transformations so far in the past, and I can really see it's not about generating the biggest impact, really just focus on what is the one with the highest chances of success with a little bit of impact. Go into the third one. Technology is key, but it's not your golden bullet. Each transformation is different, and we can see that technology is technology is really important, but only when it comes combined with organizational change. Here you can see the different elements that companies associate with the success of the transformation. So when they failed, they gave up which categories they should have done better, and they would have expected it then to also generate more returns. 3 out of the 9 categories on the slide are linked to more the technology side, data, technology, also process implementation. 6 out of the 9 elements are associated with organizational change. Technology is still important. You can see that the first one, the one on the top, is still technology-driven, where there was a misfit between what has been designed versus the real world. So it looked nice on paper, but when you went into go live, all these edge cases, the day-to-day life of a planner, could not be done in the planning solution. So technology is still very important. However, others like putting in place the right incentives of adoption, putting in place clear roles and responsibilities, having that senior level buy-in, are all of the things that we often see missing with our clients as well, which might be easier to get right if you spend enough time, budget, and resources on them. Typically, it's the first thing that falls off, but try to spend 50% of that to make sure you get the organizational change right. Now, the fourth insight, having the right APS capabilities distinguishes leaders. It's investing in APS stability, what we call, is something that most companies get right, about 70%. You do have that other 30% who really invest for the next level, and that what's giving them a competitive advantage. APS top performance really excel in putting in place a few distinctive capabilities and invest more compared to the players or more of the laggards. And like organizational change, also here on these capabilities, ensure you allocate time, budget, and resources again on the capabilities that will bring you impact. We can see here that the APS top performers, according to our survey, actually excel in these 6 capabilities. And I'll lead you through one by one. So first one, it might not come as a surprise, master data management. It's being mentioned many times today. Making sure you have good quality data, reliable data, putting in place continuous improvements on your data is very important. And you can see that the top performers invest 4.5 times more than the more laggards of the implementers.
One thing to add there, Annouck, from my end, I was just with a pharma player last week. And if you think about a pharma, what is most important to them normally is R&D. And those guys made a conscious decision on a board level to invest as much into data as they did into R&D for 3 consecutive years. And they built one data layer across the organization, across their silos that they've had before, to feed the digital transformation, which is incredibly bold and brave, and of course it requires a certain mindset in a board. But given that this is such an important factor, just to think through, to say, what would that mean in your organization if you would invest as much into data as you do into R&D? Most would probably say, you're totally crazy. But it's nevertheless something that cannot be underestimated.
Thank you for the example. Second, put in place data science roles next to your planner roles. Data science roles would own your analytics models, so your predictive analytics, as well as your supply planning solvers. They would take care more of the analytics, while the planners take more care of the actual planning, using the insights, validating the insights that the data scientists generate. Third one, make sure you bring visibility into what matters most. What does this mean? It means that you invest time in dashboards and visualization on your top performers, your top SKUs, your top offenders. So you focus your time on what matters most, instead of looking at that long list and on that long tail. And make sure those dashboards have click-throughs and root cause analysis, so you can really focus on improving those top items. The fourth one is automated alerts. We've seen it a bit also in the breakouts. It's important to really do exception-based planning if you want to improve your planner performance and productivity. Make sure that they have a dashboard. If they have run through their alerts, their job is done. So they don't have to go through every single dashboard and figure out where things can go wrong. They really are guided by the solution, which takes design to focus where it matters most, again. KPIs we've seen before could be like OTIF thresholds, forecast performance thresholds, and so forth. 5 is analytical inventory management. Use statistics to set your inventory targets, review them quarterly to make sure you have the right service levels in place, and so forth. It might sound basic, but we can still see that clients like to fiddle around with their targets and feel like they are smarter than statistics. And last but not least, the system integration and automation. Integration is difficult to get right, but once you've got it right, you will yield so many benefits from it. Inbound data sets, outbound data sets should flow smoothless and without any touches of your planners. And with that, I hand over back to Julian.
So what does that process maturity journey look like overall? Right? How are these value realization phases distinct from one to the other? What we do see in our survey data, there are quite a lot of dysfunctional APS implementations out there. It's a fact, because it's difficult. It's a difficult topic, it's a tricky topic. Most people do them once in their professional life. It's easy to get wrong. Most organizations that have experienced that do not like to talk about it. What I would encourage you to do, nevertheless, on conferences like this or any other, is talk about it. Right? Talk about also the stuff that does not work, that you have learned from it to share with others. Because I personally believe that there's much more in some of the failures that we have seen, than we can learn from what actually the best of the best do. What we do often see is that for those very dysfunctional implementations, they are primarily IT-driven implementations. If there's any IT colleagues around, no criticism on that. What we do see, though, is it needs both sides of the equation. Right? It has to be a business transformation as well. It has to be a supply chain transformation. There has to be that strong buy-in from the business units to get it right. And then you can move up the chain to say, I actually have a stable APS system in place The basic functionality is there. The first benefits yield return. I see the first benefits coming in. And then lastly, going really into a best-in-class setting. And a lot of the demo elements we saw earlier today are indeed best-in-class ideas. You need to have the data infrastructure for it. You need to have the capabilities for it. The organization has to be ready for it. And again, it's also a lot about thinking through what is important for you. What is important for your organization? Where does the value come in? And where do we want to differentiate? Because there's so many different things you can do at the moment, right? You can go into the supplier, you can go into the end tier, you can go down the chain, you can focus on your S&OP level, IBP level, long-range planning, financial planning, right? The technology is all out there. It's just sitting there, waiting for you to do something with it. But your organization can't handle all of that all at once. So the sequence and the structure is very important to get to the right. Lastly, we wanted to share one example of somebody who actually got it right. And that is an aluminum player that some of you might know if you are active in the industry, which is Novelis. And I'm not a basic materials guy. So when we first started the discussion, I was thinking, okay, an aluminum player, headquartered in Switzerland. So I was expecting 50-year-old, middle-aged, pretty conservative men being part of the equation. I couldn't have been more wrong. A very young, a very diverse, a very curious team, and a combination of experienced folks who always wanted to get better, and a young generation with a lot of external thoughts as well on how to do it right. And they defined for themselves a very clear vision of where they wanted to go. And what I liked a lot about this case as well is they have very early on combined top line with bottom line and green line. So the CO2 emission and the discussion that we also saw on the demo today of factoring in CO2 emissions into the equation of what I'm optimizing for, how to increase my share of recycled materials in my process, was something that they did very naturally. And with that had a huge impact and benefit overall on that side of the table as well, which comes much harder for many other industries. So it's a great case. Also very happy to link you with some of the folks involved here, just as a closing remark before we open it for any questions that you might have for us.
Thanks a lot. Any question for Annouck and Julian?
Or everybody's ready for a break?
There's no break after that.
What? Okay.
But thanks a lot, right? And I really like the mindset to go and to go fast on value, right? We call that in Online the value drop, so being able to showcase very quickly some value, maybe not the full impact, but at least some capability out there that you use as a change management for the rest of the program. We also see that as a key success factor. And the other thing I think you're right is we see too many companies that are addressing their planning transformation as a IT obsolescence kind of topic, but you really need to look forward. How do I differentiate from a business perspective? What is the business challenge I solve through that? Hence, what are the capabilities I need for this transformation, right? So thanks for sharing, but these are my key takeaways.
Very happy to. And you can see the mindset between Online and us is very well aligned, especially since they like to hire so many of our folks. It's very easy to work together then.
Yeah.
Just kidding. Yeah. Then thank you all for your time. Enjoy the rest of the afternoon. If there are any questions to Annouck and myself, please feel free to reach out. Thank you.
Thank you.